On an eerily quiet Wednesday evening, I was sitting alone in my cramped office at the Dunwich County Records Department, poring over stacks of dust-covered documents. Outside, a persistent drizzle was soaking the stone facade of the antiquated building, giving it a somber, foreboding look. Suddenly, the door creaked open. "Hello, Ryan?" The voice was mine, but the words hadn't come from my lips. I glanced up and froze. The man at the door was my carbon copy. He had my face, my slightly crooked nose, even the same faint scar on the chin I had received from a biking accident years ago. His eyes, my eyes, gazed back at me with an unsettling calmness. "Who are you?" I stammered, unable to hide my shock. He smirked, a reflection of my own usual cocky grin. "Isn't it obvious?" he replied, his voice eerily familiar, like an echo reverberating within the confines of the room. I shot up from my chair, the chill of fear shooting up my spine, my mind struggling to grasp the uncanny sight. This couldn't be possible. Doppelgangers were a thing of folklore and horror novels, not reality. Yet here he was, a physical entity, a mirror image of me. The doppelganger strode into the room, his steps unnaturally synchronized with the rhythm of my pounding heart. He moved with my swagger, yet there was an added grace, an elegance I always lacked. "Sit, Ryan," he said calmly. "We have much to discuss." His manner was commanding, an edge of authority lacing his tone. I hated authority. "Like hell we do," I retorted, my instinctual defiance flaring. I backed away until I was against the far wall, its cold stone seeping through my thin cotton shirt. The office seemed to close in around me, the comforting familiarity of my desk, the tall bookshelves, and the old typewriter now appearing as mere props in a chilling scene. The doppelganger merely laughed, a sound so identical to my own that it sent shivers down my spine. He slid comfortably into my chair, reclining with an air of arrogance that looked all too natural on his face. "You can't escape this, Ryan," he said, his gaze boring into me, sending waves of unsettling familiarity coursing through me. "This is just the beginning." His words, though cryptic, carried an ominous weight. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I pushed past the panic, struggling to make sense of it all. There was no rational explanation for this. I was a man of facts and figures, of record and order. This bizarre encounter was an aberration, a glitch in my carefully structured reality. As I stood there, pinned by my doppelganger's stare, the room seemed to darken. Outside, the rain began to pound against the window panes in rhythm with my escalating fear. The antiquated clock on the wall ticked away, each second stretching into an eternity. I was not a hero. I had never craved adventure or excitement. I was a mere records keeper, comfortable in my monotonous routine. Yet I found myself ensnared in this enigma, my normalcy ripped away by the existence of my twin. A twin who wore my face but carried an air of dread around him. "Let's talk, shall we, Ryan?" he said, breaking into my thoughts. His tone was lighter, yet it failed to mask the underlying menace. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My doppelganger, my mirror image, sat there with an unsettling smile, awaiting my response. The room was filled with a chilling silence as the clock struck midnight, marking the start of a long and terrifying night. The man who wore my face leaned back in my chair, a smug smile creeping onto his lips. His eyes, identical to my own, bore a look of cold amusement. They twinkled in the dim light, reflecting a chilling satisfaction that sent waves of unease coursing through me. "Fine," I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to steady it. "Talk." His grin widened, his teeth a perfect copy of mine, even down to the slight chip on the front incisor from a high school baseball accident. He steepled his fingers, another gesture stolen from my repertoire. The uncanny reflection of myself was terrifying, a ghastly parody of my existence. "I'm you, Ryan," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Just a better version." His words hit me like a punch in the gut. A better version? The audacity of his claim sparked a wave of defiance within me. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my back stiffening. The doppelganger leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. His eyes held mine in a penetrating gaze, the light in the room casting a sinister shadow on his Our face. I mean that I'm what you could have been, he said, his tone dropping to a whisper that made the room seem even colder. What you should have been. I was stunned. It felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. His words were like poison-tipped arrows, hitting at my most vulnerable spots, my insecurities. I could feel an odd mix of anger, fear, and humiliation boiling within me. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My palms were sweaty against the cold stone wall, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. His laughter filled the room again, a haunting echo of my own. "Isn't it obvious?" he asked. "I'm here to replace you, Ryan." His declaration hit me with an icy dread, chilling me to my core. I felt a lump forming in my throat. I was a nobody, a man of no consequence, living a mundane existence. Why would anyone, let alone my doppelganger, want to replace me? The rain pounded against the window panes, punctuating the silence that followed. My mind was spinning, struggling to process the horrifying reality unfolding in front of me. The room felt even more confined, the walls seeming to close in on me. My doppelganger sat there, his gaze never leaving me, an ominous smile playing on his lips. As the night darkened further and the storm outside raged on, I knew that I was about to embark on a horrifying journey. A journey against my mirror image, a journey against myself. I had no idea how this would end, but one thing was certain. My ordinary life in the Dunwich County Records Department was over. The oppressive silence in the room was shattered by the ringing of my office phone. The shrill sound sent a jolt through me, breaking the suffocating tension. I glanced at the caller ID. It was Lily, the night custodian. She was a sweet elderly lady who had taken to calling me every night, checking if I needed a fresh pot of coffee. "Are you going to answer that?" my doppelganger asked, tilting his head towards the phone. My hand hesitated over the receiver. This call was a lifeline to normalcy, a reminder of the world outside this claustrophobic office. But I had an uncanny suspicion that my double wanted me to answer it, and that made me wary. However, ignoring the call would raise Lily's concerns. "Hello?" I said, picking up the phone. My voice was tense, but I hoped it didn't betray the fear coursing through me. "Hey, Ryan," Lily chirped from the other end, her voice warm and comforting. "Just checking if you need any coffee or anything." "No, Lily, I'm okay," I managed to stutter, my gaze never leaving the man who wore my face. "Thanks for checking." As I hung up, my doppelganger leaned back in the chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "See? Isn't it nice to have some semblance of normalcy in this situation?" His patronizing tone grated on my nerves. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely concealing the anger brewing within me. His smile faltered. For the first time I saw a flicker of annoyance cross his face. It was oddly satisfying, watching him lose his composure. "I told you, Ryan. I'm here to replace you. To live the life you took for granted," he replied, his voice turning cold. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" His taunt hung in the air like a challenge, reigniting my defiance. I might not have been a hero, but I wasn't a pushover either. "I won't let you take my place," I retorted, standing tall despite my trembling legs. My doppelganger looked amused. "Then we're in for an interesting time, aren't we?" he said, the corner of his mouth lifting in a smirk. As I stood there, locked in a psychological battle with my mirror image, I felt a strange sense of determination growing within me. I didn't know where it came from or how it would help me, but I clung to it. In the chilling silence of the room, under the watchful gaze of my doppelganger, I was starting to realize that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. Perhaps it was the adrenaline, or the instinctive will to survive. The darkened room felt like a battlefield, the air filled with unspoken threats. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, matching the rhythm of the rain assaulting the window panes. I squared off against the man who wore my face, a fierce determination replacing the fear that had once gripped me. "Let's get this over with," I said, my voice resounding in the silence. My doppelganger chuckled, the sound a haunting echo in the small room. "Very well," he replied, rising from my chair. There was a new intensity in his gaze, a predatory glint that sent a chill down my spine. But I wasn't about to back down. As he advanced, I caught sight of my reflection in the window behind him. For a moment, it was as if I was looking at three versions of myself: the man in front, his reflection, and my own. The sight was surreal, disorienting. Yet, it ignited a spark of defiance within me. At that moment, I was ready to fight for my life. We circled each other in the confined space, the tension thick enough to slice through. I was keenly aware of every sound: the ticking clock, the thrumming rain, the rustling of our clothes. My mind raced, searching for a way to overcome this terrifying situation. Suddenly, my doppelganger lunged at me. His movement was swift, yet I had anticipated it. I dodged, my heart pounding in my chest. "You can't win, Ryan," he hissed, quickly recovering from his failed attack. "I beg to differ," I retorted, adrenaline fueling my defiance. The room was filled with an escalating sense of danger. Every passing second was a testament to my will to survive. I was a man of facts, records, and routine, thrust into an unfathomable nightmare. Yet, I found myself battling against the odds, against my doppelganger, against my own reflection. As the confrontation grew, it was clear that this encounter was far from over. This was not merely a physical struggle, but a psychological battle, a test of my resilience. My doppelganger wanted to replace me, to live my life. But I wasn't ready to give up my place, my existence,